You know the number one thing Sesame Street showed people, especially back in the 70s?
But
To not be afraid of cities.
yeah.
And what's the number one thing that we're hearing constantly being pushed? That cities are hellholes and all these different
Yeah.
things. The the Sesame Street shows you of not only that cities like New York aren't scary,
Yeah.
but also here's all the things you can do inside of a city. You can go to the park, you can go to the zoo, you can go play baseball with the intramural team, you can go to the market, and you can go talk to people of different nationalities. You can go to this part of the city and everyone over here is speaking Vietnamese because in this neighborhood that's where they speak it. Oh, look, they have a special celebration that they do over here. It's all about celebrating the differences and explaining it to each other, because in the idea of, which is a very old idea, it's something Mark Twain talked about and all these different things. Fear exists in the idea of not knowing.
Yeah.
Ignorance creates fear.
Yeah.
And so the best way to keep people afraid, so that way they'll only listen to you and your psychotic leader, is to make sure that people are afraid of everyone, so that way he can keep you safe from the people over there. But
Yeah.
the people over there are your neighbors. And
Yeah.
as Fred Rogers said, won't you be my neighbor? And as Jim Henson said, it's just a fucking rainbow.
Yeah. I have a quote from Jim Henson.
All right. Is it
All
a
right.
rock and roll quote?
It's not. It is. It is rock and roll. Because
Fuck you.
last time we did an episode, I talked about my beliefs in rock and roll.
Yeah.
And punk rock.
Yeah.
So this is the quote. At some point in my life, I decided, rightly or wrongly, that there are many situations in this life that I can't do much about. Acts of terrorism, feelings of nationalistic prejudice, Cold War, etc. So what I should do is concentrate on the situations that my energy can affect. I believe that we can use television and film to be an influence for good, and that we can help to shape the thoughts of children and adults in a positive way. As it has turned out, I'm very proud of some of the work we've done, and I think we can do many more good things. Because what? Positivity is punk rock.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying.
Can I want to say a closing thought, because I told it
Okay.
to you yesterday. And for anybody who made it this deep in the episode, thanks. But it's a thing.
I made it this deep in the episode.
I think it's a thing that I think about a lot. And when you're looking at the life of somebody like Jim Henson, many of us, and especially people who weren't even alive at the same time as him, we view them at the end product.
Yeah.
We view, Dark Crystal. We view Jim Henson Storytellers, which is a master at the end.
Yeah.
And we might pull out a sock and put a puppet, and we go, I'm not going to make my thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make my little sock puppet show because no one will watch it. But you have to remember that Jim Henson started with a sock puppet show, and then he tested and he tried and he did things that are different, and he experimented with things, and he tried stuff, and not all of them were successful.
Yeah, technically Labyrinth was a huge failure. It
Labyrinth was
box
a
office
huge failure.
And I'm like, that's still playing in the movies now. It's like a
Yeah.
big thing. My cousin texts me like once a year and like, you want to go see Labyrinth in the movies again?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
But
yeah, I do.
but I mean, saying Labyrinth, which is a later failure, which he would
Yeah.
argue, even if the Labyrinth was the last thing he had done,
Yeah.
he would still be considered a success because of the Muppets and because
Yeah.
of Sesame Street. But I'm saying before Sesame Street, when he's out there, he's still just doing commercials.
Yeah.
He's doing these different things. Like I know so many people who reach out to me in DMs or in emails, and they're like, how do I get started? I'm like, you just do.
Yeah.
You just get started. And that's the hardest thing to do. For stand-up, I had to get on stage one day. For the podcast, at one point we could come up with what we wanted to do. At one point we had to turn the mic on.
Yeah.
And then once you turn the mic on, at one point you have to post it, and you can only edit so long. And all of these different things are things that I think we get lost in us because we see somebody who is an artist like Jim Henson and like the people surrounding him and the massive team he builds up. And we think that, oh, I can make a puppet show that's the equivalent of the Muppets. And some people can.
Yeah.
There are people who can do that.
Avenue Q is great.
But some of those people also, they're leaning on 50 years of the Muppets.
Yeah.
And knowing what is possible.
Exactly.
And so if you have a dream, if you have an art, if you have a thing that you are trying to do, please do it. Just start doing it and post it. And like that's, I think, the part that's getting scarier for people is posting the art and posting the things that they enjoy doing, because you're going to get critiqued on the internet. Yeah. But the sooner you post it, oh well, okay, well here we go, here's my little puppet show. Somebody writes, oh, I don't like that. Okay, well, I just did that and they said they didn't like that. I didn't spend 10 years working on this and then had one person say they didn't like that. I spent 15 seconds and they said they didn't like that. Okay, well, that got him. Oh, but there's 2 comments from people saying that they did like that. Okay, now I'm going to do 30 seconds of this and building it out from there. And I just want you to know that there are more people like Jim Henson out there than there are people like that hang out in comment sections.
Our friends that got married had a Muppet-themed wedding.
Yeah.
Remember? And we all sang. Oh my God. Weeping, crying, laughing.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's his niche. Weeping, crying, laughing.
Well, it's also one of those things where...
Because you're allowed to be happy and sad.
No, well, it's one of those things where we have disconnected. We've compartmentalized our emotions. Emotions exist on a spectrum, and nobody wants to fucking deal with that. We compartmentalize it, which is the reason why so many psychos have been able to step into some of these spaces. By compartmentalizing and not living in a space where you can be happy and sad, you can be laughing and crying, because by having the juxtaposition, you have people who are like, he's a comedian, he only can do laughter. If you look at somebody like Robin Williams did drama, so that way Robin Williams can understand comedy.
Yeah.
Robin Williams did comedy, so he can understand drama. When you look at all these different people, when you look at Jim Henson, and I know you mentioned Frank Oz, another one that I want to shout out who's really big is Richard Hunt, who a lot of people forget often. But Richard Hunt was a puppeteer on the show who came in. He was another one who walked in as almost a kid, a young guy, and was just like, hey, what are you guys doing? I heard you're hiring for Sesame Street, and just like strolled in.
Yeah.
He became Skeeter. He became all these different iconic characters on the show, but he was also openly gay in the 70s.
Yeah.
He had friends who were dying of the AIDS crisis. And he's actually one of the people who was really, if you watch the Jim Henson funeral, he's the tall guy with the short gray hair.
Yeah.
And he is actually kind of leading the Muppet Singers.
Yeah.
He dies 2 years later of AIDS.
Damn.
And there's certain things when you go through what a lot of what they were doing because of the way they grew up in the 50s and the way because of television was and the way because of self-censorship, you ended up with a lot of people telling stories like the AIDS crisis and a lot of people telling stories about being different, being hidden metaphors.
Yeah.
That people could then understand. So then when you did meet somebody who was gay or you did hear about AIDS or you did deal with racism, It's Not Easy Being Green helps you understand these ideas.
Yeah.
It's taking 3 or 4 steps back instead of being directly at it. And that's why you're seeing the attacks now on the legacy of Jim Henson, Sesame Street, and others, because fascist psychopaths know that if we can take 3 or 4 steps back and understand that the differences between us are actually our strength, that diversity is strength, they'll attack that exact phrase rather than look around and see what we get from our diversity.
Yeah.
What actually makes us strong and what was a building block of this country and our world. And I think that, again, I had that strongman view of the Muppets where it was just Jim. But as I've grown up and as I've gotten older, you start to see more people. Frank Oz is a big one because of Miss Piggy and because of Yoda and because he became a director. But Richard Hunt was one that got called out. There was a YouTube documentary I saw about him that was like really incredible. But there's just so many other people inside the Muppet shop and the Creatures Studio and all these other people that are around. Jim's wife being a huge part of it.
Yeah, she was huge. But then she got really busy because they had 5 kids.
Yes.
It's hard to do Muppets.
What's her name again? I blanked on it.
Oh my God, I have to
Jan?
scroll up. Jane, yeah.
Yeah, Jane.
Jane or Jan.
I remember it was a J.
I don't even know where that part of the document is anymore.
I remember it was a J. That's why. But I mean, it's also one of those ones where that's why I really liked about the documentary we watched because they don't erase her.
Yeah.
She is there. Jim's allowed to travel and do these different things because
Jane.
Yeah. But because Jane keeps the house centered.
Yeah.
And also, like, there was just you and I were talking about more and more. There's just so much. He Jim Henson's a complicated man because of how many different things he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I think he's also a simple man because at the end of the day, everything he wants to do is art. Hey, you made it to the end of this clip from one of our full episodes. Do you want to see the whole episode? Go down to the show notes right here and go click on the link and you can watch the whole thing. Or are you looking for more Too Many Tabs content? If you haven't already liked and subscribed, check out this playlist right here. It has all of our episodes that we've uploaded to YouTube. Check us out. Too Many Tabs.
Pearl Mania, Pearl Mania.